Welcome. This tutorial introduces the design criteria for a Sideman system. Now, the purpose of a Sideman system is to analyze musical performance in real time. And that musical performance is what you, as the pianist, is playing. And based on this analysis, Sideman system will generate real-time accompaniment to your performance. Now, a Sideman system should abide by the philosophy that it always puts you, the musician, in complete control of your performance. That is, it is the user's performance that dictates and controls how the system responds. And such a system should never take control and drive the performance. It's your playing that does that. There are literally hundreds of user performance characteristics that Sideman system should analyze and recognize and abide by. Here are a few examples. Your performance can have volume variations. The system needs to sense that and detect that. You might want to pause your performance, you want to halt your performance, and you might want to resume it. Well, the system needs to detect that and respond to it. There can be tempo variations in your playing style. You may want to speed up or slow down. So your chords. Chords can be as simple as a triad. They can, 3 notes. They can be a 7th chord, major 7th. They can be 9th chords. They can be 11th chords, 13th chords. They can have rootless chords. Here's a G13 without the root. Well, the system needs to decode that chord and realize what the root is. Here's a C major 6-9, no root. The system needs to decode that chord and know the root. It needs to recognize chords like suspended 11th chords. And there's chord voicings. The voicing, you can have voicings that are open. You can have them clustered. You can have inversions. And there's hundreds of these voicings that the system needs to analyze and recognize and respond to. Bass notes that accompany your chords. They might be the root. They might be fractional chords where you have an F over a G. Or you might have a major 7th over a D. So the bass is important to the system. It needs to recognize that and realize it. For example, pedal point. That bass sustains. Well, the system needs to recognize pedal points. The key signature that you're in. Or sambas. So the time signature is important. You might be playing bass. You might be just playing chords. Or you might be soloing over chords. So the system recognizes soloing, chords, and bass accompaniment. It also recognizes, are you playing staccato chords? Or you are playing arpeggiated chords? System analyzes that and recognizes that. Now, in chord progressions, you might want to know that you're playing a 2, 5, 1, or a cycle of a 6. Chord progressions, keep those in track. It can anticipate what you're going to play if it realizes you're playing a chord progression. Now, when a Sideman system accurately captures this performance information, it can then use that data to enhance your performance, and not lead it, but enhance it. And possibilities for this enhancement are, it could provide bass accompaniment. The Sideman system will generate bass patterns to your chords. Chordal accompaniment. It might be based on your chord, the system can play this chordal accompaniment. It can play percussion, congas, drums, lots of percussion accompaniment. Guitar accompaniment, melodic accompaniment, brass and string accompaniment, hooks. It will play nice hooks to play along with your song. Now, a noteworthy feature of a Sideman system is that it's the only input it requires is your MIDI performance. So we have a MIDI piano. And as such, there's no need for any physical controls, such as buttons, switches, sliders, LEDs, displays, or menus. That's why I've covered this up. In order to use a Sideman system, you don't need any controls. You just sit and play at the piano. Now, a Sideman system can be used either for your personal use. It can be for practicing scales, recording, creating musical ideas, or you can use it in a professional setting. You can take it out and play gigs with it. It is ideally suited for the visually impaired pianists. Now, I often play with my eyes closed, and I can control the entire system without any controls, just by knowing how to play with your eyes closed. So that's a very interesting feature of a Sideman system. That can be very useful. Now, the only hardware requirements for a Sideman system are a computer. Now, that can either be a laptop. Cheap Windows laptops can be loaded with Linux, and they're virtually free. You have a free Sideman system on a laptop. Or you can even use a single board computer, like the Raspberry Pi. Works beautifully for this. Now, it serves the MIDI system. It needs a MIDI interface. Now, the MIDI interface is a high-performance microcontroller that processes the MIDI data coming out of the keyboard and transmits the MIDI data to a MIDI tone generator. And it's all done in very fast hardware USARTs, interrupt service routines, FIFOs, which are very efficient. And so it offloads the burden of this processing from the Sideman software that's running on the laptop or single board computer. And this provides very low latency. The timing is all, and also the MIDI interface has these hardware timers that are very precise. And being interrupt driven, there's no latency, which is a very useful feature. I don't think software without a hardware MIDI interface could be viable. Now, the accompaniment that Sideman can generate to your performance is, realize it's not canned or pre-recorded, but it's generated in real time based on what you play. It responds to your performance. A trivial example would be that how does the system respond to you when you pause, or you change your volume, or you change a key signature? Now, if you change keys, the accompaniment needs to accommodate that. So those are very important things that the Sideman system must do. Now, the software in a Sideman system, the ones developed by Pro Piano, that software began in the late 1970s. It actually predated the release of the MIDI 1.0 spec in 1983. And it includes algorithms from calculus, statistics, physics, information theory. They've been in the works for a long time. And it's also important that the Sideman system exhibit this very low latency, and this is accomplished by the use of the very efficient hardware MIDI interface. It's where all the processing of the MIDI in and MIDI out takes place by the interrupt service routines. Now, the main loop of the Sideman system software, now only needs to handle 2 events. And most of these are handled by the MIDI interface controller. And those 2 events are the MIDI note on and MIDI note off events of your performance. Whenever you play a note, those notes are processed by the MIDI interface and sent to the program. And every time you get a note on or a note off, the Sideman system software recognizes that note on and when it was played and how loud it was played. And it also knows when it was released. And the second thing that the main loop does is it analyzes Are you playing solo notes? Are you playing chords? Are you playing a bass? Are you playing a bass pattern? Are you playing arpeggiated? Are you playing staccato? Are you playing rootless chords? And so it analyzes that in very quickly. And the third thing is to generate accompaniment as the MIDI output. And what a Sideman system does is once you have your tempo, the system knows your tempo, and it's being maintained by a high-precision timer counter in the MIDI interface. So the beats of your tempo, once you start a rhythm, are very precise. And the Sideman system software pre-calculates what the next data, the next information accompaniment should be before the next beat. And it sends it to the hardware, to the MIDI interface, and says, this is the data I want you to play precisely on the next beat. So there's not the situation of where your software gets bogged down trying to calculate what needs to be played on the next beat and then playing it on the next beat. It's done in advance. So anyway, that's just some considerations of a Sideman system. And I hope that was useful to you. In some other videos, I'm going to be demonstrating the Pro Piano Sideman software and some of the its analysis capabilities and the accompaniment generating capabilities. So hope to see you soon.